Let's make my Rocky Spires quilt pattern using a layer cake. One 42 count layer cake, which are 10-inch squares, will yield you a 51-inch by 59.5-inch throw size quilt. This pattern uses the Creative Grid's perfect rectangle ruler to create half rectangles. I will include a link to the ruler in the description and also all my patterns that use this ruler. But of course, I will have many more to come. Now, Rocky Spire is a beginner-friendly quilt pattern, so you can play around and get used to it too. But let's go ahead and get started. First, you are going to select 21 10-inch squares and cut them into two 5-inch by 10-inch rectangles. Then with those rectangles, you will take your Creative Grid's perfect rectangle ruler and using the 9-inch register mark, you'll line it up on the bottom and make your cut. At this time, go ahead and cut the dog ears off from the top. Then you'll slide your ruler up just a little bit to cut the dog ear from the bottom. Now this will help you when we piece everything back together again. Now, one important tip, you need to keep the angle of your half rectangle in the same directions. If they are opposites, you will create a totally different look. But once all of your half rectangles are cut, you'll just rotate them around and then cut another half square triangle on the other side. Now, each 10-inch square will yield you 4 half rectangles. Then all you have to do is repeat this step until you have created a total of 81 half rectangles. Now with your remaining 21 10-inch squares, you will go ahead and trim them down to a 9-inch square. Now let's go ahead and create our half rectangle quilt block. First, you are going to select two half rectangles in one print and two in a separate print to create the layout shown. You will then sew your half rectangles together, and this is where trimming those dog ears off will come into play. You'll be able to line up everything perfectly, then you'll sew them together with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Afterwards, you will sew those blocks together side by side to form a 9-inch quilt block. Then you'll repeat this step until you have made a total of 21 quilt blocks. Here is a quick tip for my beginners. First, create the half rectangle quilt block, then go ahead and measure that block and then cut the remaining 10-inch squares to the exact same size. Once again, it should measure as a 9-inch square, but if you are just starting out, sometimes our 1/4 inch seam allowance can be a little bit off, and this little tip will help make sure everything is the same size for when you piece it all together. Speaking of which, once all of your blocks are made and your squares are trimmed down, it is time to piece everything together. So first you will start with your half rectangle quilt block, followed by your print 9-inch square, and then you'll just repeat between the two in a 6 by 7 block layout. Then as always, sew your blocks together into rows, and lastly, sew your rows together to complete your quilt top. And here is what my quilt looks like all completed. For the backing, I am using a brushstroke print that I had lying around. And for the thread choice, I went with glide threads in the color sand. And here is what my quilt looks like all quilted. One layer cake will yield you a 51-inch by 59.5-inch throw size quilt, which you'll be able to whip up pretty quickly and is perfect for beginners who want to dabble into the half rectangles. But if you could please take a moment to hit that like and subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you can be notified for your next amazing quilt project.